Right now, there is a good chance the government of Canada owes you money you have never applied for. Not a scam, not a rumor, a real payment sitting in a filing cabinet in Ottawa with your name on it that nobody is going to call you about. This year, in 2026, thousands of Canadian seniors are quietly leaving hundreds of dollars a month on the table simply because nobody told them the payment existed. And by the time most people find out, months of it are already gone for good. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which OAS-related payments are the easiest to miss, the ages and income lines where they change, and the 3 things you can do this week to make sure you are not one of the people leaving money behind. I am going to walk you through this the same way I used to walk clients through it, across my desk for close to 30 years, in plain English, with real numbers. Before we go further, quick introduction. I am a retired financial advisor here in Canada. I spent my career helping people plan their retirement income, and a good chunk of that work was simply making sure clients claimed everything they were entitled to under CPP and OAS. CPP is the Canada Pension Plan, the pension you built up through your working years by contributing from your paycheck. OAS is Old Age Security, a separate monthly payment funded by general tax revenue, not by anything you personally paid in. They are 2 different programs run through Service Canada, and they behave very differently, which is exactly why so much confusion happens. Let's start with the biggest and most commonly missed one because it sits in a gap that almost nobody watches. Between age 60 and 64, before OAS itself even begins, there is a benefit called the allowance. If your income is modest and your spouse or common law partner is already receiving the Guaranteed Income Supplement, which is called GIS for short, a top-up for lower-income OAS recipients, you may qualify for the allowance. In 2026, it can be worth several $100s a month, and for some households considerably more once you add it up over a year. There is a second version, the allowance for the survivor, for widows and widowers in that same 60 to 64 age range, living on a modest income. Here is the part that catches people. Neither of these arrives automatically. You have to apply. Service Canada does not send a letter simply because you turned 60. Let me give you an example. Call her Margaret, 67 now, but this happened when she was 62. Margaret worked 34 years as an educational assistant with a school board in Winnipeg. Her husband passed away when she was 60, and she was left with a modest survivor pension from his workplace plan and very little else until her own OAS would begin at 65. For 2 full years, Margaret was likely eligible for the allowance for the survivor and never applied, because nobody at her bank, her pension office, or anywhere else ever mentioned it to her. She assumed, like most people do, that nothing from the government starts before 65. When she finally learned about it from a neighbor, she called Service Canada, applied, and some of that back period was recoverable, not all of it. Some benefits can be paid retroactively for a limited number of months, but not indefinitely. Every month of delay is a month you cannot always get back. So if you're between 60 and 64, or you know someone who is, and money is tight, that is a phone call worth making this week, not someday. Now here's a question worth sitting with for a second. If OAS is supposed to start automatically at 65, why would anyone ever miss that one too? Because supposed to and does are not always the same thing. Service Canada automatically enrolls a good number of people and sends a letter around age 64 confirming it, but not everyone gets that letter. If you do not receive it, the pension does not simply start on its own. You need to apply, and if you never do, the payments never begin, quietly, with no follow-up call from anyone reminding you. The current maximum OAS payment for someone aged 65 to 74 is in the neighborhood of the mid-700s a month, and it is adjusted every 3 months to track the cost of living, so the exact figure creeps up slightly throughout the year. If you are within about 6 months of your 65th birthday and have not received confirmation of automatic enrollment, that is your cue to call Service Canada directly or check your My Service Canada account online rather than assuming it is being handled. And OAS is really only half of this story for lower income seniors because that is where GIS comes in, the Guaranteed Income Supplement I mentioned earlier. GIS tops up OAS for seniors with limited other income, and here is the detail that surprises people. It is not a one-time application you file and forget. GIS is recalculated every single year based on your income tax return. Misfiling your return, even if you genuinely have very little income to report, and your GIS can simply stop, sometimes without much warning. I have seen this happen to a client, call him Walter, 71, retired mechanic outside Hamilton, living mostly on CPP and OAS with GIS topping things up. One year, after a health scare, Walter fell behind on his taxes. His income had not gone up. If anything, it had gone down. But because his return did not go in on time, his GIS was cut off in July, which is when the annual reassessment happens. The fix, once we caught it, was straightforward. File the return even late and the GIS was restored, with part of it backdated. but he went months without that top-up simply because a form was missing. If you're on GIS or think you might qualify, filing your tax return every year, on time, whether or not you owe anything, is not optional paperwork. It is the switch that keeps that payment turned on. Here's what most people miss next, and it is genuinely good news for once. When you turn 75, your OAS goes up automatically by 10% for life. This has been the rule since 2022, so it is not new, but plenty of seniors who are already 75 or older have never actually confirmed it landed on their payment. It is not something you apply for. It should simply appear the month after your 75th birthday. The maximum OAS for someone 75 and older is currently in the neighborhood of $815 to $820 a month, again adjusted quarterly. If you or a parent are 75 or older, it is worth pulling up your OAS deposit or logging into My Service Canada account, and just confirming the higher amount is what is actually being paid. Automatic does not always mean flawless, and the only person checking is you. Now, between 65 and 70, there is a decision, not a payment you can miss by accident, but a choice many people do not realize they even have. You are allowed to delay starting OAS past 65 right up to age 70. For every month you wait, your eventual payment grows by 0.6%. Wait the full 5 years, and your OAS is 36% higher, permanently for the rest of your life. On a payment in the mid-700s, that turns into roughly $1,000 a month once fully deferred. For someone in good health with other income to live on in their late 60s, that can be one of the better guaranteed returns available anywhere, but it is not automatically the right move for everyone. If your income is low enough that you would qualify for GIS at 65, delaying OAS can mean giving up GIS payments in those years, money you generally cannot recover later. And if your health is a serious concern, waiting for a larger check you may not collect for as many years is a real trade-off, not a free upgrade. This is genuinely a run-your-own-numbers decision, ideally with a look at your health, your other income, and whether GIS applies to you, rather than something to decide on a whim. Let's talk about the one line that takes money away instead of adding it, because you deserve to see it coming rather than discover it after the fact. This is the OAS recovery tax, often called the clawback. Once your net income for the year climbs above roughly $95,000 in 2026, and that threshold is indexed and adjusted annually, the government begins reducing your OAS by 15 cents for every dollar you are over that line. Here is the tricky part. It is not calculated off your OAS statement. It comes from a specific line on your tax return, and the reduction often does not show up until the following year, after you have already spent the income that triggered it. The classic way this happens is a single large RRIF or RRSP withdrawal in one calendar year, say for a big home repair or a one-time expense, that pushes your income over the threshold just for that year. Take Douglas, 69, retired from a manufacturing plant near London, Ontario, comfortable income normally, nowhere near that line. One year he withdrew a large lump sum from his RRIF to help a family member and to redo his roof. That single withdrawal pushed his income over $95,000 for the year. 12 months later, his OAS checks were smaller, and it took him a while to connect the dots back to that withdrawal. If you are anywhere near that threshold, spreading a large withdrawal across 2 calendar years instead of 1, or looking at pension income splitting with a spouse to bring your individual income back down, can keep you under that line and protect your full OAS payment. If there is one thing I want you to carry out of this video, it is this. None of these payments or protections happen simply because you turned a certain age. The allowance requires an application. OAS sometimes requires an application. GIS requires a tax return every single year without fail. The 75 increase is automatic, but it is still worth confirming. And the clawback is avoidable if you plan around it rather than get surprised by it a year later. The system is built to pay you correctly if you know where to look, but it will not chase you down to fix a gap. You have to be the one who checks. So here's what I would do this week if I were sitting across the desk from you. Log into my Service Canada account or call Service Canada directly and confirm exactly what you're receiving and at what rate. If you're between 60 and 64 and money is tight, ask specifically about the allowance or the allowance for the survivor, and make sure your tax return is filed even if it is late, even if there is very little to report, because so much of this is quietly tied to that one document. None of these calls take very long, and any one of them could put real money back in your pocket. If this video helped clear things up, hit subscribe, because I put out a new one like this every week, breaking down exactly how CPP, OAS, and GIS actually work in plain language. No hype and nothing to sell you. Next time, I'm going to walk through exactly how CPP and OAS interact when you take both together, and the timing decisions that can change your total retirement income by tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. You have worked your whole life for this. You deserve to receive every dollar you are owed, not just the dollars someone happened to remember to send you.